Welcome to the CanesInSight podcast here at the First Round Management Studios. I'm your host, Peter Ariz. Back at it again with none other than D Money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We had to invest in this podcast. You know what I mean? We used to do this thing, buzz everywhere. It sounded like we were broadcasting live from Havana. You know what I mean? That was not worthy of CanesInSight Nation.
We were in the South Beach studios.
We were in the Miami Beach studios. We were at a beautiful palatial estate, but it didn't sound good, you know? And with the program investing millions, you know, we had to invest. CanesInSight Nation, we had to invest in you, invest in this podcast. You know, we got 10-Day Tony producing. The producer's more famous than either of us, you know? It's like getting Gaddis. It's like getting Radakovich. You get championship experience, make the sound a little more crystal. And then bring in the most polarizing man in the Canes Nation right here, Mr. Peter Ariz.
I'm excited to be back, man. I mean, it's been obviously, 5 years now, almost 4 years. January 2018. I think that was when I stepped away, plug out at the time. But obviously it's been, for me, it's been a good 4 or 5 years here at First Round Management, doing what I do as an NFL agent. And I'm glad to get back into this space. And I wasn't going to do it, with anyone other than you and with CanesInSight, but
stepped
you and
away.
I have gone way back, and I think it's time. Obviously, we've seen a lot of stuff the last 15 years, right? So
yeah.
I mean, it hasn't quite been 15, but it's been. I mean, we met in 2011.
Yeah, you had one eyebrow at that time, flat bill cap at the Canes camp.
If I don't maintain it, it becomes one quickly.
I know, man. You're really working those eyebrows. You're looking like Ricky Martin or something. You've been working those hard. But yeah, you say you stepped away. Stepped away is one way to put it. You know, it was a little more chaotic than that. But I think Canes Nation, CanesInsight's forgiven you when you announced your return.
Let me interrupt you there. I think it wasn't as chaotic. It wasn't. I don't think it was as much as what Canes fans made it out to be. I think there was a time there where they thought I was connected to like kids leaving early from school and stuff like that. When in actuality, I was, I stepped away. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I had no idea. I remember the morning that you called me and you're like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I honestly don't know. I think I might try this out, but it's not like I had something lined up." Obviously, came over here to First Round Management. Mount Kikawa gave me the opportunity to essentially be his assistant at the time, and as the owner of the company, he is involved in football and the MMA side as well, and a bunch of other stuff. But I got certified, and I've been in the game now for 5 years, just about 4.5 years, and I'm excited to get back into this side of it now.
Yeah, man, you represented Titus Howard, first round tackle. Running football now. I think that Canes Nation forgave you because when you said you were coming back, I saw GIFs all over, celebratory GIFs. Well,
I don't think people actually know I was coming back though necessarily, right? I mean, we haven't really. This is gonna be like a
little surprise for them. Yeah, they're posting R. Kelly pissing on people. They're posting pictures of Clorox bleach. So they're fired up about your return, from what I could see.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's to be determined, right? I guess we'll see. But I think we have a vision for this. Somewhat, we don't know what it's gonna become. Months down the line, but obviously we want to still bring that same info that we've always brought, right? I think I have a different perspective now from what I was doing before. I was around the team as a reporter. I was in practice. I was, at these high school camps. So I had that perspective. Now working on this side of it, I have a lot of info from the NFL side. And, as the season goes on, I think it'll be cool because I'm pretty knowledgeable now about guys across the country. So I think I'll be able to bring that perspective as well. But, we want to make this something where we are going to have players on, have people in the community that, that we feel like will be, big parts of the show. But we want to also make this an NIL opportunity for the guys on the team, right? We want to make this something where they're compensated to come on. So any, local companies, it doesn't have to be local, anyone who's interested in becoming a part of this reboot, I guess you could say, of the CanesInSight podcast, right? Reach out to myself online, D Money. You guys know where to find him on CanesInSight and on social media as well. So yeah, I think that's I mean, I'm excited, man. That's pretty much sums it up for me.
No, I'm fired up, man. This is the excitement of the program, just the energy of building, doing things bigger, thinking bigger. This thing's going to get bigger. We're in training camp ourselves, so we're working out some kinks, But 10-day Tony, you, me, we're going to get this thing rolling, and we're going to involve the community. So, CanesInSight, we're going to be coming to you for questions, things involving the community, and really doing it big, man. But talking about the show, let's talk about what people came into here.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. We've had enough of the back and forth now, but I mean, because I know you always have your sources, right? You've always been a guy who brings the tidbits, right? What are the differences that you're hearing right now between what's going on in camp? I mean, it's early, right? A week or so in, but between this and, I mean, we can say just the Manny, camps, but let's go back and compare it to, the last 10, 12 years in Miami and what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, the first visual thing, and we saw it in spring the first time, is just the amount of coaches. You know what I mean? 3 times as many, either coach or staff or GA, just more people on the field. On top of guys like Ed Ogeron, Ed Reed walking around, Jason Taylor, it's just a volume of coaches. But really, to me, what jumps out is the physicality increase. So with Golden, we're always complaining about the 2-gapping, trying to be too much like a Penn State where you're taking up two gaps at the same time by being physical as opposed to penetrating and getting upfield, being athletic. Manny went the total opposite way where everybody was trying to slip blocks, get on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And that was good. It had very much immediate success, but then you saw the North Carolina game, some other games where we were just pounded because we weren't physical enough and trying to slip everything, getting out, losing integrity, and just the mentality that worked so well early became a negative. What I think Cristobal is doing is, sure, scheme-wise with Steele, there's going to be more just taking on blocks and less of that pure upfield attack of Manny. Not quite what Golden had, but somewhere in the middle. But I think mentality-wise, he is practicing taking on blocks, destroying blocks, being physical at all times. I mean, the contact level at practice is insane. It really is nonstop. And I think the idea is you can't be physical unless you practice with physicality. So you see that right away just in terms of the way the drills are set up. Someone like Leonard Taylor, really athletic dude, wants to slip blocks and get in the backfield. They're showing him that, we're going to come right at you and see what you're made of. And if you're not up to snuff, we'll make you up to snuff.
Oh, and he's a guy who relies on his athleticism, right? I mean, he was a 5-star kid coming out and showed tremendous flashes last season. I'm sure they want to see that consistency from him. This is, I guess, their way of toughening him up, right? I mean, this is who they are, though. This is what we saw from Cristobal going all the way back to, I mean, what he learned under Saban at Bama, right?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Bama. We're not playing necessarily this year, but we saw how their physicality was just on another level. I mean, their defensive backs were tossing around Mallory. It was ugly. So Cristobal's seen that standard. Kevin Steele's seen that standard. Gaddis has seen that standard. How do you get to that point?
All right.
First is the practice element, then there's the recruiting of body types, which we'll be talking about recruiting on this podcast every week for the rest of the show. But that aspect, the physicality, you can talk about it, but you have to do it first, and that's what we're seeing in practice. You're seeing practicing physicality. It's going to be some injuries. It's not just you could just do it all the time and expect not to have some people banged up.
And the depth's not there yet, at some spots, but that's going to come with time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I'd say that's the biggest difference, the physicality and then the presence of so many coaches on the field.
Well, and to that point about how many coaches are, the other thing that I've heard from multiple people in the league, a couple people in the league have told me just how much Mario demands of the staff. So it's not just how many guys are actually working within the program, right? But the lowest level staffer is expected to do just as much as the coordinators and vice versa, right? And seems like everyone's bought in, and it's that. I think that mentality is seeping into the locker room, in what I've experienced in my dealings with the players and stuff like that.
No question, because look at the tip of the spear. If Cristobal is the highest paid guy in the room, and he's up texting, no
one works harder than him.
Yeah, it's funny because look what he got paid. And it's like, what is his true talent? And I got to think his true talent must be texting 17-year-old boys, because that guy does that from the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to sleep. He didn't care, you know?
Right.
It's like he's got no pride about it. He does it like he's a GA.
It's the lifeblood of his job.
Right. So if he's doing that, everybody's going to be doing that. And that just, that just seeps through the whole program. So, yeah, man, you get what you pay for. It's like this podcast.
Yeah.
Sounds better? That's 10-day Tony. That's us paying and investing. You want the Canes to get better, you got to pay the money, and you got to put in the work, and that's what we're seeing.
I mean, what's sticking out right now from, again, it's early, weekend, right? But anyone sticking out in particular, this is the stuff that, people get excited about, obviously, and everyone knows D-Money likes to hype his guys up from Green Tree.
Oh, I've never told a lie. Those things are always dead accurate. But usually the player stuff is accurate. The collective team maybe doesn't perform, but the players on Green Tree that play well usually are the ones that play well on the field. But
I've been guilty of it in the past as well. So, but he's pretty egregious for it.
Hey, well, listen, let me tell you. In spring, you saw Cyrus Moss getting a ton of reps on defensive line. You saw walk-ons all over the place. It was a depleted unit.
Yeah.
Last year on the field, not a very good defensive line, not a lot of pass rush like we've been used to with Manny. I think that's one of the reasons why Manny got canned, is he didn't keep up that level of pass rush recruiting. So what you have now, you bring in 5 transfers. You're talking about guys like Lichtenstein, Daryl Jackson. They put on film in Power 5. Agude, Keem Messidor, Moultrie, these were all conference players.
Right.
All of them physically mature. Daryl Jackson is probably the only one that's young at 19, but the guy's 6'6", 320. And already is playing in the Big Ten level at Maryland. So you bring that in. You still have talented guys there, like a Leonard Taylor, Jared Harrison-Hunt, who's gotten bigger, more sturdy at 295, Chance Williams, Jafari Harvey. So you get the blue-chip talent that's there. You push it with more veterans and coach them up and really cultivate that physicality we were talking about.
Right.
That defensive line has gone from a weakness last year, almost unplayable in spring due to injuries. Now, I think it's got to be one of the better defensive lines in the country. And I think it'll be like 2016 when Manny took over at first, Coach Kuligowski, and you saw Chad Thomas balling.
A lot of guys you can move around too that maybe don't have a set spot. You mentioned a Mesidor who comes in from a West Virginia, right? I mean, from an NFL standpoint, I think scouts are still trying to figure out what his best projection is going to be, but he'll have an opportunity to kind of get moved around, I think, in this defense.
No, absolutely. Third down, you can move him around, and it's not just the guys that were already here who are playing well. Again, Hunt being a major example of that. Leonard Taylor, probably our best interior pass rusher. Those two guys really athletic, kind of like a Richard McIntosh on the last great defensive lines that we had, or Gerald Willis. And then the new guys. You also have the freshmen coming in who we didn't have. And right on top of that list, Nigel Lee Kelly on the edge. Yeah. The word I'm getting from people around the program is superstar. I mean, talking about Jalen Phillips level talent. A guy 6'4", he's probably about 240 right now because he had the shoulder injury, so he wasn't able to gain weight. He'd be 250 by now in the natural course of things if he never got hurt. He'll be 250 soon. Long arms, looks skinny in the upper body. He looks like a receiver because he still hasn't filled up there yet, but he's got big legs, which allows him to be a little sturdy. This guy's bend is absolutely unreal. It's like Cameron Wake. Remember him from the Dolphins?
Yep.
Where it looked like he was blocked and he'd find his way to the quarterback. That's what this guy brings to the table. Extremely quick for a lanky guy. He can change directions. You're not going to just catch him being stiff. He can move. Smart, plays hard. He's been absolutely unbelievable and really the talk of camp. Early. It's only 4 practices, 2 in pads, but he's someone that right away people are like, this is a dude. He's going to help us this year, and he's ultimately going to be one of the building block players for what Cristobal's trying to do.
Is Cyrus Moss a guy who you think gets in the mix this year?
I wouldn't say this year. I think he's going to be a really good player, smart. You saw him in spring make a lot of plays when we were depleted. Problem with Cyrus Moss, at least compared to a Nigel Lee Kelly. Nigel Lee Kelly's got those big legs, which allow him to hold his spot. Cyrus Moss built more like a linebacker at this stage, but that's when Miami's good. People are asking about the freshmen. A lot of these freshmen, they look good. They look like they're players. They weren't misses in recruiting, but you don't need them right away because you got guys in front of them, maybe a transfer that came in or someone that's developing. So when Miami's really good, you're going to have those layers of players. And then the freshmen that play, it's going to be someone like a Nigel Lee Kelly or a Trevante Citizen, who you want to talk about guys making an impression. I've been talking about since spring. I would not be shocked if this guy was starting by the
He's
end of
well
the year.
put together for sure.
Yeah, you've seen him. You've seen him up close. I mean, you're around NFL players all the time.
Yeah, no, he's built like you want them at the running back position.
I mean, you can opine on this more than me because I've never met the kid, but from what I hear, business-oriented, tough-minded, not afraid of hard work, respectful, but not someone who's going to be meek.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and he's from a kid from Louisiana. Obviously, they've been churning out talent left and right over there, and he's a kid who, I mean, look, in the beginning, we'll see they'll probably get him mixed in, really scheme his touches, right? But as the year goes on, probably take on a much bigger role on a strength of this team, which should kind of just show you what he could be, his ceiling is, and I think what they believe he could do pretty early on too, because it's one thing to say this kid's got potential. We say it every year with guys, but he's, I think, ready to make an impact pretty early on here.
No, absolutely. And his body's ready. It's running back. Really running back. If you can pass block,
right.
The running part is natural. We'll see how he runs when the scrimmages start. And right now, they're thudding, but you're not taking guys down to the ground.
Right.
So to see his balance, his contact balance, his ability really to make guys miss, truly, his toughness, those kind of things you really see in the full contact. But if he runs like he did in high school, and
that it's going to be an interesting group for sure, because you obviously know Parrish is going to be that consistent guy who will get you 4, 5, 6 yards a carry, can catch the ball out of the backfield. Chaney is in awesome shape right now. He's a guy who, he's a first-round management client, full disclosure, but he's a guy who has completely transformed his body. Like, it's awesome to hear Cristobal saying what he's saying about him, because I've seen it up close. The kid looks completely different. I mean, we had a first-round management camp a few weeks back. He was one of the guys that came out there. Jake Garcia, Gilbert Fryerson, DJ Ivy, DJ Scaife. It was cool. Like, the guys are getting involved in a lot of stuff community-wise in the off season now. But yeah, it was cool to see them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chaney, I mean, not surprised with the community service, and Belen graduate. So you could honestly say he's not only the smartest player on the team, he's probably smarter than his coaches, given Cristobal and Mirabal's academic background.
Does it hurt you that pretty much the power structure of the University of Miami's football program is a Columbus thing right now, or?
Well, we're talking about football coaching. We're not talking about brain surgery. You know what I mean? So
we are recording a Canes football podcast here, so. Let's look at what's important, right?
Yeah. So no, Chaney has the IQ. To me, with Chaney, I want to see pass blocking, because he's a veteran. He should be a better pass blocker than Citizen, for example. He comes from a wing tee at Belen. Didn't really have a lot of pass blocking experience. He's been hurt.
Before the injury last year, it looked like he was ready to turn the corner and really be the guy, especially in the short yardage situations. And I mean, he was the guy that was finishing drives for them too.
Yeah, I mean, talent-wise, the guy's unreal. He was Dade County Athlete of the Year, jumps out of the gym, and really, I mean, I joke with the Belen stuff, but the guy's character's off the charts, anyone you talk to.
Right.
So him and Citizen, that to me is one of the interesting battles of camp, because Pear's going to do his thing. Smith brought him in with a role in mind. He's a great pass protector. He's very slippery. He's always going to get the yards that are there. He's got great vision, great feet. He's just not that big, not that fast. But he'll have his role. Rooster's going to do his thing.
Right.
We know he can make plays. I mean, the play he made against North Carolina and the play he made against Florida State are probably the two best plays I've seen in Miami in 10 years, at least among them. Right. I mean, really special plays. But he's not an every down back. 3.9 yards a carry last year didn't hold up that well. Chaney and Citizen have the size, the speed, the athletic ability to be what you consider a true Miami back, franchise back, at least what I consider a franchise back at Miami. So we'll see. We'll see who wins that battle. That to me is a scrimmage battle to watch.
Anyone else before we move on here? I mean, in terms of camp, anyone sticking out?
Oh, yeah, there's a few guys. Jalen Rivers, I got to get to him. So is Zion Nelson hurt? He should be fine ultimately, but with him out, not practicing, left tackle wide open, you're bringing back John Campbell, who was playing really, really good before.
I heard they're excited about him.
And he was playing great before he tore his ACL, a year and a half ago. So it was really unfortunate at the timing of his injury. He's coming back now, still working his way back, but showing some good things, and as his body's matured, he's older. This is a guy who played as a redshirt freshman, started against Florida in that game.
Yeah.
Really,
Same game that Zion started, and everyone was down on him after that. But
yeah, they weren't ready. But,
yeah.
your body matures, you get smarter. Now is the time to play. But the real revelation to me has been Jalen Rivers at left tackle competing with Campbell. And, I've heard this guy is just completely dominating some really good players, like our top quality ends. 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", 320 skinny. He was a weightlifter.
Well, I'll tell you the interesting thing about Rivers is, generally the way it works with that you hear NFL scouts like this guy, there's buzz about this guy. A lot of times, really look, the scouts are going in there watching the seniors or the guys who are draft eligible that they think or have information or knowledge that he's probably going to come out, right? Because they're not wasting their time with prospects who are freshmen and sophomores. But if they go in there and they're watching a guy who's coming out this year, they may see a younger kid who catches their eye, make a little note of it, put a star next to, his name on the roster. Jalen Rivers is a guy that there's already some legitimate buzz, and how many games has he even played, right? So that kind of just adds into what you're saying, that he's a guy for the next level that there's already an eye on him for sure.
Yeah, he stands out. It's hard to miss his size, so he's going to stand out. He was our best lineman last year before he went down with the injury, better than Zion according to all the coaches. So with him, the older I get, when I was younger, and you see this on the board too, people watch the highlights and see athletic numbers, and they're just like, they love the talent. Right. You're like a Jeff Thomas, like talent. This is the guy that should be playing.
There's more pieces to the puzzle though.
The more you watch it, the guys that really do well are the smart ones. That's who does well, the players that are smart. Right. Might not be book smart, although Jalen Rivers, I think, was valedictorian of his class, so that helps. But just the smart players are the ones that succeed. You've seen it at wide receiver, with an Allen Hurns, a Berrios, a Dorsett, KJ Osborne, Mike Harley,
yeah,
who's doing things in Cleveland camp right now. Those are the guys that tend to succeed more often than not when you combine it with some physical abilities. Right. So a guy like Rivers, who's valedictorian, you just hear him talk. I mean, the guy's all business. Yep. Offensive line should be some of your smarter players. He's someone that could be a primetime player on this team, and as he gets some more starts under his belt, because he hasn't started that many games, a real leader, you hope, on the offensive line. And someone who, if you're looking at the future...
Yeah, I think by mid-season it'll be very well known that he's like the anchor of the line, or one of the anchors.
And they should all look like him.
Yeah.
It's not happening now. You have some short players, lack of length on offensive line.
You have guys playing out of what their real position will be. You look at a DJ Scaife, who I think is been a very important part of this offensive line the last few years, has played all over the line. He's going to play right tackle for this team. He's played everywhere, but if you talk to people in the league, center is probably his projection, right? And ideally, if this team was, a top 5 for sure playoff team that you expected to be in a couple of years, right? With how they're reloading the roster, Scaife would probably be a center guy, but he's having to play because that's what the necessity is right now, and that's just one example. But there's others.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you look at the recruiting class. Frankie Tinalau, who you saw. I mean, what do you think about him when you saw him in person?
Yeah, no, and I've seen him, the videos of him, and it's pretty impressive. The kid is he fresh from Australia, right? And it's impressive what he's doing.
Yeah, those who don't know, we're talking about an offensive line recruit who's at Miami LaSalle, coming from Australia. Yeah. A big Samoan dude, played rugby. Francis Maugawa, number 1 tackle in the country, kind of cut from the same cloth. Tommy Kinsler, who you spoke to people in Ocala, they were talking about him.
Obviously, I think he was a 3-star recruit. Look, guys, I'm not on the recruiting stuff day to day as I was, but we have group chats, and I'm still on it, and I see and I watch it. But I reached out to someone I know in Ocala who is very big in the football community over there, and the buzz on him is really, really good. I mean, he's a kid who probably hasn't even come close to scratching the surface of what he's going to be. So let's see. I mean, probably a guard, right, at the next level, but yeah, I mean, they're loading up. You have the guys who are highly rated, and then you have these guys that obviously, anything that Mirabal and Cristobal, kind of deem as a Miami guy at the offensive line position, whether it's right now or a year or two down the line, they probably see something that the normal eye wouldn't see.
Yeah, although the normal eye can see that these guys are giants, you know.
Right,
So it's
right.
like tying it all back, they're all going to look like Rivers in 3 years. But for right now, Rivers is that one dude where you say, all right, or maybe a John Campbell too. Campbell's got some size on him. He's 6'5", 300 something plus, not looking fat with it. So he's someone that's going to be interesting to watch. Another guy that I think has really caught eyes in fall camp, beat the Corey Couch. There's people that think he is the best corner on the team. Came in so skinny. He was like 145 pounds, I think, when he committed. I mean, tiny. He had long arms. He was lanky, but he was just really skinny.
Right.
Now he's bulked up. He looks like a upperclassman college corner. Still has the great feet. Still 4.4 speed. And you've seen him play with confidence where he's really like a dog out there, just a kind of undersized guy that throws his body around. And then I saw him a little bit last year lose that confidence. Oklahoma State, the Bowl 2 years ago, also kind of lost that confidence. You're seeing the confidence back because maybe the extra weight and his ability to match up a little bit more, combined with the footwork, the speed, playing mostly nickel. He's someone that looks like he's going to have a very, very big year and really help us at a position where nickel's become super important in today's game.
Well, and obviously nickel is like you said. I mean, that's base now, but it's a wild card position that I think has some big time upside because you look at a Tyreek Stevenson who probably, Zion Nelson has high grades as well, but Tyreek across the league probably more consistently in that top 100 range. And I mean, he's shown flashes of it. Another guy that consistency is going to be a big thing for him. And then a DJ Ivey on the other side, obviously tons of experience, right? But if he can play with some confidence, he's a guy who, scouts. It's obvious. You look at him, he's got the look, and he's in position. He's just got to play with some confidence. That can turn into a strength of the team, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah, Ivy, man, great kid, high IQ, another high IQ guy. It's funny because we were saying the same things last year. T-Rob loved Ivy. We were saying if he gets confidence early, maybe he gets a pick or something in the Alabama game.
The scouts are the ones saying if he plays with confidence, because everyone talks about ball skills. The scouts aren't. That's not what they say. It's not really. If he's playing with the confidence, the ball skills will come. Essentially, how their view on it is.
But what happened the first game last year? We were talking about that all offseason. Confidence for DJ. He's the best guy in practice by far. Everybody knows that T-Rob loves him. Then the first game, you see him chasing Jamison Williams, and now we know.
As we come to find out, right? Yeah.
But I think that really set a bad tone for him. And in general, the defensive backs. I was talking to a coaching buddy of mine, and he was saying, you look at the film last year of Miami, they could not tackle in the secondary at all. And that was not always a problem. I mean, the early Manny teams tackled extremely well in the secondary. When Banda was around, those early teams, that was a strength of their team, of the defense, right, when Manny initially got it rolling as a defensive coordinator. So that stood out on tape. They've played a lot better in spring and so far in camp. The defensive backs that I had a lot of people talking about as a future head coach. Got to see it translate to the field. But defensive backs, if you're asking me defensive backs versus our receivers right now, I would give edge, based on what I'm hearing, to the defensive backs. It's early. Scrimmages haven't even happened yet. And it's hopefully a back and forth.
And we know it's a loaded safety position, too.
Oh, James Williams, people are going nuts about this dude. We know his talent. But I think, go back to the IQ thing. People say, okay, 6'5". He's a 5-star. Is he a linebacker or whatever? They'll talk about all these things. Focusing on the physical attributes, which he does have them. James Williams is one of the smartest football players on the team. You watch him at American Heritage. He played everywhere for Surtain, who's an NFL guy. Pat Surtain was the coach of American Heritage. You can't throw him in all those roles right away because he's got to learn a little bit. But now that he's gotten his taste of college football and he's really, again, student of the game, passionate about football, I think you'll see him go all over the field and do it in a very high level. And when you're 6'5" and you're in the right place, think how much ground you cover, as opposed to a 5'11", 5'10" safety, box safety monster. He's going to just cover so much more ground because of his length. on top of the fact that he has good footwork and he's twitchy. But he's someone that's going to be unique. Obviously, have Cam Kitchens behind him.
Well, the interesting thing about both Williams and Kitchens to me, just again talking to a lot of the guys on the team and people around the program, is like those guys almost had the respect of the locker room immediately because people that their name from high school. It's interesting because a lot of times the name from high school hurts them, right? Guys will say, "Oh, that kid was a 4 or 5 star. I've seen him. He's not that good," right? How many times do we see that? These guys, people on the team and in the locker room pretty much knew what they were. I think there was an excitement from even older guys on the team that, like, man, once these guys get out there, they're going to be able to show what we're seeing in practice. So those guys now have the floor is theirs now, right? And Avonte Williams is another one you throw in the mix. Brian Balome, right? So he's another one that I think they're excited about. And then I think more, I guess, the striker position, the big linebacker spot too. Gilbert Fryerson is another one who's in the best shape of his life, right? I mean, that guy has the COVID year is something that I think players across college football for the most part have taken advantage of, right? And kind of like, man, I have one more chance to do this that I otherwise wouldn't have. And Gilbert, much like DJ, but Gilbert has really, really like gotten himself in a place physically that I think he would tell you he's happy about. And I mean, people forget that this was a guy who was like almost like an MVP for this defense. 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a Jalen Phillips on the team 2 years ago, right? So MVP might be a stretch, but I think he was second on the team in tackles that year, right? So I'm excited about what he can do this year.
I agree. He was the second best player on that defense. They had like 9 tackles for loss or something. Yeah. And
that Clemson game was like his best game.
Covered at the end of the sideline on that wheel route, step for step. I think I keep going back to this theme about IQ, but you know this because you've talked to people, and I've heard this from coaches, players, all over. First thing someone's going to say about Gilbert Fryerson, they say he's the smartest player on the team. He goofs around on social media or whatever, so people get a different perspective of him. But in football-wise, I've heard stories about him falling asleep in meetings, and the coach will ask him a question thinking he's asleep, and he'll wake up and he'll get everything right. He's just one of those, he has a knack for that. And you see it on the field, right. Especially that season, the 2020 season. He was reading plays before they happened. That's how he was able to get so many disruptive plays in the backfield. I think the key with him, you mentioned the physical conditioning. He wasn't really in great shape last year. I think that set him back early. I
don't know what his body fat percentage is now, but I know it's as low as it's been for him. So
that will help. And then also he needs to be more physical. If he wants to be kind of that big nickel linebacker hybrid type, he's got to tackle. He's got to get guys to the ground. Now, what's interesting is the way they're training him, from what I understand, is more of a defensive back. So his role is going to be the same, but he'll do drills more with the defensive backs as opposed to just thumping people and playing that linebacker spot.
So probably have a matchup against some tight ends and things of that nature, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the modern game, right? There's going to be a pass catcher in that position that you're going to have to deal with. It's not the old school Sam. So
use him as a spy. Probably a good amount. So.
Oh yeah, and his blitzing is off the charts because his timing is so good.
Right.
I think he had like three something sacks in that year that breakout year he had. So Fryerson's a good one. I want to see more physicality from him. He has it in his body. He's a strong guy. Another guy who kind of falls in a similar projection is Al Blades. As far as he's got a lot of talent. Everybody wants to see him succeed. He needs to be a better tackler.
The scouts give him draftable grades walking off the bus. I mean, there are teams out there that have dropped. Now, to say that there's 2 or 3 teams that may have a guy, and I'm not saying 2 or 3 teams have him, but just because a couple teams have a guy as a draftable grade, right, doesn't mean that the rest of the 30 teams, don't have him as an undrafted guy or PFA or whatever. But that just goes to show you that there are people who are getting, paid to do this who believe he's a guy. So who's to say that he couldn't be a guy who it makes an impact this year, right?
Yeah, and he's playing, you mentioned, you're going through the safeties. You mentioned Williams, the 2 Williams, James and Avonte. You mentioned Cam Kitchens. Balone they like a lot too, but I would say the 4th safety in that mix is Al Blades.
Right.
he's playing a lot of safety, and that's another reason why the physicality has to be there. But at the same time, you've seen him play nickel. That's when he came up as a freshman. He was playing nickel. We've seen him play outside corner. He has quickness. So you could do a lot with someone like him. But it's interesting about the draftable grades. And I think Fryerson, I remember you mentioned that you were talking to a scout, maybe this was 2 years ago or last year, and basically saying that this guy is what you're looking for in the NFL. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's the modern, what do you want to call it, a linebacker or a defensive back who really cares at this point, right? He's a guy you can match up with different guys across the other side, and the blitzing aspect of it is huge, right? I mean, he's a guy who was living in the backfield that 1 year, right? I think they gave him a lot of freedom too, so it'll be interesting to see like who they're giving that freedom to on the defense, because there's a lot of guys who can do different things, right? But yeah, I mean, for certain teams that run a system that, I mean, you look at a Budda Baker with the Arizona Cardinals, right? I mean, he's a guy who didn't have any interceptions the first couple of years of his career, and he's a safety, right? But he's a guy who plays up near the line of scrimmage, right? So some sort of role like that probably, at the next level for him. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do, to see if he can build off that year from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and James Williams could play that role. There's a lot of guys that bring some versatility up front. Tyreek Stevenson, I think that really is what he's going to play in the next level. He played that at Georgia. I think in a perfect world, that's what he plays. But yeah, secondary continues to look good. They had a great spring. Again, Kevin Steele, they interviewed him, and he said, I watched the tape of the secondary, and I saw him when I got here, and they looked a lot better in person than they did on film. Right. So you hope that continues. You don't really know.
Again, walking off the bus, they're going to look really, really good.
A lot of 4-star and 5-star talent there that's had some years of growing. Other guys that are making some waves here early. Elijah Arroyo, man. Someone I loved coming out. I thought he was elite. He was heavy last year. Served him well in his role, where he was kind of a blocking tight end. You also saw him in the backfield, as a fullback, really more of a blocker. And he showed his physicality. That was there. But there's more to his game when you watch his high school highlights, just the dynamic ability he has as a receiver. And I don't think we saw that last year. Caught a touchdown against Pitt. Had a couple nice catches, but nothing that really made you say, wow.
Yeah.
Watching him, hearing about him, he's lost weight. He's moving a lot faster. He's got great instincts. He's got great hands. His work ethic's off the charts. He's someone that, talking about NFL guys.
He's got juice, yeah, definitely.
And the fact that he came up not as usually you get these tight ends and you say, we'll put him at that big slot first to get him on the field, and then we'll teach him the blocking. For this guy to get on the field with his blocking when he's really not a blocking tight end, you could check that box. He's physical, you know that, and then you have the receiving on top of that, and he's got the size and the athletic ability. Not much that he's leaving on the table. He's got it all. So he's someone I'm really, really excited to see. And you hope, with Mallory always kind of battling injuries, you hope he has a great year just for himself and everything he's put into the program. But Arroyo's someone that you talk about, I'm trying to find guys that are going to be those stars, like a James Williams, like a Nigel Lee Kelly. You would put Arroyo, at least I would put Arroyo in that category as someone who has a chance to be a real star for this team.
Well, let's talk about, the biggest star of them all for mine right now, and Tyler Van Dyke. And, the quarterback position in general, I think we should get into just a bit. But, yeah, is it much of the same from him right where he left off last season? Or, do you think that there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here with the new system coming in?
People are so high on him in the building, just the work ethic, the competitiveness. This guy is competing. He wants to win just in the offseason when they're doing, the shuttles and all the conditioning stuff they do, the change of direction, the all the kind of movement drills they do and the conditioning. He won them all, and he would let people know he was winning, and he was just very competitive, and he had that edge. He's a jock, man. I know you're a golfer.
Yeah.
You golf with him. How's his game?
Yeah, I've played with him a couple times. No, man, he can swing it for sure.
And good putter, right? So he's clutch.
Well, look, it's a hand-eye coordination sport, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and you see a lot of the quarterbacks across the league, Mahomes, Josh Allen, obviously Brady and Peyton Manning. They're all big golf guys, but yeah, he can swing it.
But I love that mentality where he goes to Pittsburgh, wins that game, freezing his butt off against the team that would eventually win the ACC. He comes back home, right when he lands in Miami, they go straight to the golf course. It's just like he's got that kind of just jock mentality.
I know him and Restrepo play a lot.
Right, another guy who that's their hobbies are sports.
Yeah.
Their hobbies are not different than sports. Their hobbies are sports, so that bleeds into their work ethic. So people are just in love with Van Dyke, what he brings if your best player has that attitude, it's easy to build that kind of Cristobal culture. And he took to the offense pretty quick. He was there in spring doing his thing. What's interesting to me is Jake Garcia was a little behind in spring. He didn't take to the offense, the Gaddis offense, as quickly as TVD did. Coming off injury, wasn't physically maybe where he needed to be just from a size, strength standpoint. So he was a little behind in spring. It wasn't like he set the world on fire. Got better at the end. But from what I'm hearing, he is really, really dealing. Just amazing. He's a natural passer, and his timing, anticipation, the ball's out quick. Right. So even though if you look at him and Jakari and TVD, he might have even though he has a good arm, he's probably the weakest arm of those three because those are such big physical guys. But because he's so early with the ball and his anticipation so good, he can make throws to any part of the field. And hearing a lot of good things about Jake. He's not going to challenge TVD. TVD is going to be the starter.
But you got to give him credit. I mean, I think from the outside looking in, right, there was a lot of people on social media and on the forums on CanesInSight, right, who kind of expected him to just pack up and go once they saw what TVD did last year. When obviously it was a pretty. His injury last year had a part to do with it, but TVD went and took off, and it is what he is now, right? We know he's that guy. But Jake wasn't far off in that whole thing, right? So for him to, again, a lot of people thought he was gonna probably enter the portal and all that, but he stayed strong, and I think he stayed committed to it, and understands that there's a real nice opportunity ahead of him. So it's good to hear that he's doing that in practice.
Yeah, and the kid. I never met him, but man, if I was a quarterback in Miami and looked like that, I'd be a jerk. I'd treat people like dirt. I'd be walking around like the cockiest guy in the world. But I heard his personality is totally different than that.
And the cool thing with him, we were talking about the community service thing earlier, but Gilbert Fryerson and Frank Gore Jr. did their second annual co-camp in Coconut Grove, obviously the community that they were born and raised. But Jake came out. He came out there and he was doing drills with the kids. This is not his camp. Gilbert is a guy who's a fifth-year senior, right? This is not the guy that he's on the other side of the ball. So the fact that he went out there, obviously Gilbert's a popular guy on the team and people want to support what he does, but that was a really cool thing to see Jake get out there and see him as into it as he was too. So I think that it's quarterback stuff, right? These are the side things that people get excited about, the leadership qualities. With him, there was again a kind of a stigma that he was the social media guy, right? They had the documentary about him his senior year and all that. Everything that I've seen up close has been like the opposite of that, right? He may get the attention because, like you said, he's in Miami, he's a quarterback, he's got that flair about him, right? But he's not. I don't think he's doing it to try to bring attention to himself. That's just it's natural with him, right? So yeah, that's just a little anecdote about him, but yeah, it's great to hear that he's doing well.
Yeah, looking forward, scrimmages going to be coming up.
Yeah,
that's the positions we're going to be watching closely, see how those guys perform. I would say, stepping just first 5 practices in the books. Looking forward, who's going to make plays at wide receiver? Because it's one thing to do it in practice, it's another thing to do it in scrimmages. It's a whole other thing to do it in the games, but It's an escalation. You could hear about some guy doing good in off-season workouts and 7-on-7s, but I've seen a guy like Lance Leggett who tore it up as a freshman on Green Tree, and it was an adjustment period once the pads came on. Sam Shields, who ended up being an amazing player in NFL, same thing. There's an adjustment period when the physicality comes in. So who's going to step up at that in the scrimmage level,
right,
and give you confidence that's going to carry over to a Texas A&M game? That's what I'll be watching on the wide receivers. Certainly, you want to see linebacker who's going to elevate themselves there early buzz on Caleb Johnson, the transfer from UCLA, is he's got some speed. We know he's got experience, so that's a positive. But it's hard, like just same as running backs, which is another position you're looking at the scrimmage. You can't, when you watch these practices, or if anyone's been to Green Tree, they're not taking them down to the ground, even in the most physical practice. It's just not happening anymore.
Right.
So to see who's going to step up in that environment, that level of physicality, that I think is the next thing we're watching here as we go forward. And with Canes Insight, we're going to keep you guys up to date on all this as it comes. Canes Insight show, we're going to be bringing it to you, raw every single time, every single week. But that's the next thing to watch, because running backs, that's going to be a real test. Linebackers, that'll be a real test, and I think wide receiver as well, that'll be a real test. So a lot of action awaiting us, but so far so good, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what comes of the next few weeks of practice, right? I mean, I think they closed camp not far off, the 17th.
Right, but yeah,
16th.
But the meat's still awaiting us now.
Right, it's the good stuff's coming up now.
But before we sign off, I know you got to catch a flight tomorrow, so one of our guys, Canes, Jonathan Ford's out there.
Kept the streak alive, John Ford, man.
Yeah, kept the drafted. Thank God, that was awesome. What are you hearing from him? I've seen some tweets about him.
Yeah, obviously everyone kind of understands with Ford, he stands out, right? I mean, in a room of big NFL players, he stands out. You see him up, with the Packers first round pick, Wyatt, they have Kenny Clark up there. I mean, and it towers over everybody, right? And listen, what we're hearing is he's doing a great job. At this point, they really like him up there, and he's got a solid shot, moving forward to hopefully make the 53. I mean, obviously there's preseason games now coming up, so just like we're talking about with Canes camp now, the real meat of it's going to come up, and obviously he's going to have to show it in these real live settings. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, because he wasn't a guy that if you kind of put a wager on last year before the draft, you wouldn't have guessed him to be the one that kept the streak alive. But that just, I think, goes to show you too of how differently sometimes the NFL views guys than what maybe the common fan might. And look, just because I'm an agent doesn't mean I can watch it any better than the next guy, right? We're getting our information from the league, right? But those are the people who really can see what they're going to be at the next level. And with Ford, yeah, it was easy to see his size, his athleticism, but looks like he's putting it all together, and excited to get out there. And they play the 49ers this weekend, so yeah, gonna be out there tomorrow and Friday, and check them out.
Watching that. No, John Garvin, another one on that team that stuck around. Yep. But yeah, man, how you feel? You're a little nervous at the beginning. You got the rust off. You're feeling good.
I don't know if I was nervous. It's just been a while, and now we have we're leaving ourselves open for more scrutiny now that we have the video aspect of it. Yeah. No, it's I'm sure they'll come up with many memes and whatnot from things that go on, because look, we're gonna have guests on. We're gonna try to make this thing big. Like I said, we want to bring an NIL aspect to this for the guys once we're able to bring them on the show, and obviously they'll give us even more insight than we could give. But yeah, if anyone out there wants to get involved in this Canes Insight podcast, then reach out to myself or D Money.
Yeah, give us your feedback on the website, things that you like, things we could do better, segments you want, questions you have. Want to involve the community, obviously. Give some feedback on Pete. I'm sure you guys are going to be very kind to him. There's going to be no comments about his appearance whatsoever. I know you worked hard on those brows to make sure that there were no new memes coming out. You got a fresh cut. Shout out to, was it Juice Cuts?
Yeah, Juice Cuts, and then Edgar Cuts. We're here in the barbershop, so
right.
You can't really see on the other side of the camera, but we're in the barbershop / podcast studio here at First Round Management. So yeah, man, I think we're gonna take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, beautiful studio here. It's what's it called, the Kendall Art District or Bird Road Art District?
No, this is not Kendall. We're in,
what's it called, the Bird Road Art District?
Yeah,
what do they call this?
Bird Road Art District. Yeah.
You got peacock bass in the lake. I might do some fishing out here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, this is the area for it.
This is heart of Dade County. This is a Dade County podcast. Got 10-day Tony. There's no, this is pure Dade County. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited what we're gonna do, and take it to another level, just like the program, man. It's gonna be good.
All right. For the Canes Inside podcast, I'm your host, Peter Ariz, alongside D Money, checking out here from the First Round Management Studios. See you next week.